My name's Darrel Plant. Imagine you're a 12-year-old nerd. And I suspect that for a lot of the people here tonight, that's not a big stretch of the imagination or just memory. This is, 40, but really imagine you're 40 years ago, you're a 12-year-old nerd. There wasn't any of the things that you have to glue yourself together. There were no phones, no cell phones, no internet, no Facebook, none of the glues that you could use to seek out new nerds and new nerd civilizations. There was TV, there was movies, but you did these things yourself. You were alone. You were alone doing those things. You couldn't really do those things with other people. By the late mid-70s, TV had three TV shows. There was Planet of the Apes, $6 Million Man, for nerds, nerd TV shows. And they were on opposite each other. You could talk about movies, you could talk about films, you could talk about the TV shows, but really the only nerd interaction you got was chess. And chess was a big increase in nerd interaction, but there was Scrabble, where Scrabble you could have lots more interaction, but still you've only got 4 nerds there. Then sometime in the early 70s, some older nerds got together and started introducing fantasy stuff into their miniature war games and sorcerers and stuff. I think they were probably high. And then that sort of collided with people taking on, instead of armies and squads, they took on individual roles, which sort of brought the role of games that used the dice to do the numbers crunching together with the Barbie and other stuff. I'll skip over that. Anyway, so D&D hit for me at a perfect time. I was a freshman in high school. A friend of mine and we scraped together $5 a piece to buy the original boxed set of Dungeons and Dragons, which came with a lot of stuff. But the rules didn't tell you actually how to play the game. You sort of had to be initiated into the game. Otherwise, you were as lost as, say, a mage in the Temple of the Frog. Little early D&D reference there. But the rules had no information about exactly what went on during the game. They were still oriented toward a heavily miniatures thing. The ochre jelly here moved 3 inches. Doesn't sound too scary. There was no dungeon master. The person who ran the game was called a referee, and I put together a little photo illustration here so that you can see how that would work out. But there was a lot of stuff going on. There was the big Gen Con game that came out in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Much bigger now than it was back then, but a lot of stuff that was coming out, and these are sort of hard to see. These are some of the many, many things that were available through the bookstore that I worked at in the early 70s or early 80s. And this is a piece that I wrote for the Dragon magazine in 1979 when I was a high school senior about a very trenchant, satire about high school cliques. And then in 1982, I got a call from the children's librarian at the public library in Springfield to come give a talk about D&D to a bunch of kids. And here's me in my really scary looking Panda Bear T-shirt. But I got to notice the week beforehand that this youth pastor wanted to come and give a big long talk about how you were going to be sucked into the devil's maw by playing Dungeons and Dragons. I wrote to TSR to try and get some help. This is Gary Gygax's letter back to me saying, well, sorry, we don't know what to do. but I just wanted to say that D&D was like one of the first ways for nerds to get together to do things in a cooperative sense rather than a competitive sense. And 40 years ago, and I'd like to say, I'm Darrel Plant. Have a good night.